Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of the Adams Mystery Playhouse Podcast. Adams Mystery Playhouse is Colorado's only full time mystery dinner theater. I am your co host, Nick Guida, and with me today is my partner in crime, Marn Will Square. And how are you today, Marn?
Well, I'm doing pretty well, Nick, but I have to admit to you, I made a mistake. You know how I'm always correcting people?
Yes, I'm quite aware of that, that personality trait.
Yeah, after 21 years working together, I bet you are. Well, anyway, I made a big boo boo on my correction in episode 9. And by the way, folks, it's kind of fun to listen to these in sequential order because we will call back to things that happened in previous episodes. And this happened in episode 9 when Nancy said she and the other character had requited love. And then I corrected her and said, it's unrequited love. And but then I I made a mistake on what and I knew what the definition was, but I had said to her, it means not holding back. That is not true. It means unreciprocated, or that the love is not a two-way street. Like a one-way street. You know, Nick, when you like somebody and they don't like you back.
It's usually the other way around.
Oh, where they like you and you don't like them back?
Oh, you would be surprised.
Well, that's a good place to be. But anyway, my boo boo, one thing I've learned, if I've learned anything at all, is if you're going to correct people and you're not right, at least do it with great commitment.
Yep,
You know,
because then they will not question you. Speaking of past episodes, you're not even going to believe what happened this morning. I got a phone call from Chris Holling's wife, Katie. And you know how he says he takes his marriage so seriously?
mm-hmm.
Well, apparently last night, it was the middle of the night, 2 in the morning, and Katie hears this talking, kind of muffled talking.
Mm.
She gets up and she goes and she finds Chris on the phone, and he seems to be out of breath. Well, she asks him what's going on, and he gives her some ridiculous story. She takes the phone out of his hand and says, "Oh, yeah? Well, what are you wearing?" Jake from State Farm. And who is our guest today?
Today, our guest is Juli Redson-Smith, and Julie, we've worked together for years, and that's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's been great.
And you were referred to us from an actress from the Arvada Center, wasn't it? From
Yeah. She and I were in Kiss Me Kate at the Oriental Theater, and I was Kate and she was the sister. And she was working for you at the time and had a night where all of a sudden something came up and you were like, "Well, can you find a sub?" And she said, "Yeah, call this person." And I came in and I subbed for one show and I've been with you ever since.
And you know, you have to be the best singer. We've got a lot of good singers in our troupe. In my opinion, you're at the top of the heap. And I just love it when what's that song that you do where you bring the guy up on stage and it's
Oh,
like an 80s song?
yeah, Heartbreaker. It's a Pat Benatar song.
Yeah, Heartbreaker. Yeah. And and then half the time the guy's up doing the air guitar and singing.
Yeah, it's really fun. And then by the time that part of Heartbreaker, Dream Maker, Love Taker, don't you mess around with me. No, no, no. That whole part, the audience knows by the end of it, and everyone is singing along and rocking out with it. I love doing that.
It is so fun. It is so I gotta ask you, of course, your voice is gorgeous, and I don't remember if you told me, did it come naturally for you or voice lessons or how's that all happen?
It was actually a little bit of both. One funny thing, I have been singing ever since I was little and always wanting to perform. Then in high school, I studied voice with a lady from the Metropolitan Opera and continued studying voice lessons with different people here in Colorado. And so it's kind of both. It's natural, but it's also trained. And it's a lot of fun to be able to
Wow.
use that.
How fun, how fun. And it adds a lot to our shows. And what I love is the movements, I guess what would call it choreography that you
Yeah.
add to the songs?
Yep, I think about where I want to be in the room as I do each part of the song, where I can involve the audience, what motions will help to accentuate the ideas. One of the funnest ones is that from the speakeasy, we do I Want to Be Loved by You. And not only are my movements a fun kind of flapper with your knees kind of stuck together movements, but I sing it also in a different voice. It's kind of like that 1920s radio style where she goes, I want to be loved by you, and nobody else but you. And you sort of different
I
way of
want
singing.
Yeah, that was the style then, but and every time I hear it, I think somebody's breathing in helium, but yeah, yeah, you do
Yeah.
that very, very well. And of course, one of my faves and the choreography you have with that is New York, New York.
Oh, yeah. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New
New
York.
York. I'm singing along with you because by the time it comes to this portion of the song, I'm in the back of the room singing this with you. I don't even know if you know that, but and of course I have a terrible voice. One of my favorite things though is when we get the audience members up for that final chorus line in New York,
Yeah,
the knee kick, knee kick.
they love that too. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
fun.
usually some big old lumbery guy. who's- Nick, while you're on here, hi Nick, are you still there?
No, I've left. I haven't been here for the last 15 minutes.
I want to talk about a
It's
gig
just,
that,
it's just it's just ironic that I came back right when you asked for me.
yeah, that is incredible. Uh,
But continue.
but in the ironicis of it, uh, what did you all think of going up to one of the most prestigious gigs I've ever been on, and that both of you have been on them?
Oh,
Uh-huh. And it's exclusive club in Wyoming called Old Baldy Club. Am I saying that right? Old Baldy?
yeah, it's old Baldy.
Yeah. And what a place.
Yeah. It was amazing. And the other thing that was really nice was how they treated us as performers. A lot of times we have to get dressed in the broom closet and stuff like that. And that place was really nice, and they welcomed us, and the audience was so into it, so supportive. I loved performing up there.
Oh, yeah, and the spot, I mean, here you are in one of the most gorgeous places in the world, looking out over a valley. The big rain clouds come in. Well, that was the first year, and they had that rainstorm. Were you on that, Julie? And the lightning was
Yeah,
coming down. And it was incredible. It was beautiful.
yeah.
And then the owner of Stetson's Hats was there, and then you got to talking about Stetson hats, and then what did he do for you?
Oh gosh. Well, I think he was the president or something. Anyways, I had a Stetson hat on as part of my character, and he came up and he asked me, "Are you wearing a Stetson hat?" And I showed him the inside of my hat and said, "Absolutely." But it was a hat that I had been given. Oh, I want to say maybe back in the '80s. So it was an old Stetson hat, and he said, "You need a new hat." And so he said, "Get contact me, and I'll get you a new hat." And he did. They sent me a really wonderful, beautiful black hat, and it was great. I have it, and I'm
And,
wearing it in all the shows now when I have to play that kind of character.
and to top it all off, I'm a big reader of C.J. Box. He's New York Times bestseller, and he was in the audience the first year. Remember that, Julie?
Yeah, yeah.
So there was C.J. Box, famous mystery writer, and his table mate was the sheriff of Laramie, Wyoming. So we're performing our mystery for a lawman and a mystery writer, and they enjoyed it. It was so much fun.
Do you remember a holiday party at a country club way out south, and it was a terrible setup. Two rooms off each other, so you had to kind of stay, and it was there were two huge rooms, and you kind of had to stand in the doorway in order for everyone to see you perform. And we're doing the show, and we did the walk around, and everything seemed to be going okay. And we literally started the investigation. And Julie walks over to me and she goes, uh, the woman who's in charge of this, she wants you to end this now. And mind you, we had barely started. And I went, well, I think we've got enough clues to solve this crime. So here, let's do it by applause. If you think it was Terry, and when they and they applauded for whomever, and then I said, and you are correct. The murder was none other than so and so. They confessed, and we just
Right? We just
we
left.
just left. The other thing I'm almost certain of, you and I were the only ones that knew what was going on. She told you, you came over and told me. So the other performers are kind of like standing there going, what is going on? I always remember that one. And because, I mean, I don't know if it's a direct quote, but in my mind, it was you going, they want you to end this now.
One of my favorite recent stories with you two, and I was not on this gig, but it was for Chick-fil-A, and they love what we do, and they love Nick as detective, and they love all of that. And it was for Chick-fil-A, wasn't it, Nick, when you and Julie were at that exclusive ranch with an
Oh,
address
oh
of
yeah.
Sedalia.
Oh God. Yes.
Yes, Sedalia is not very far from Denver, but
Regular Sedalia.
regular Sedalia, but rural route Sedalia was what, an hour and a half up a bumpy dirt road or something?
Yeah, it was. Well, what it was a Sedalia zip code. You went through Pine Junction, and it actually didn't seem like it was going to be that bad of a trip. But you get to this road, this winding dirt road, and you drive all the way up this mountain at 5 miles an hour, maybe.
Yeah.
And it takes probably 30 to 40 minutes just to go up this road. So I got there, and then Julie got there, and we're there in plenty of time. So we're thinking no big deal. And the clock keeps ticking, and they would walk over every now and then and go, are the other people coming? And I was like, yeah. And then I think at a certain point I talked to you, Marn.
Mhm.
You you being Marn. And like so we know who you is in the conversation. So we're waiting and waiting, and the other three performers decided to drive together. And the person that was driving thought it was Sedalia. And Marn's like going, oh no. No, this is different. This is gonna. Oh, I've driven to Marn. Oh, Marn. The famous "Oh,
Oh,
Marn,
Marn.
oh, Marn." I've driven to Sedalia hundreds of times, and you're saying this isn't the Sedalia you're thinking of. They didn't give themselves anywhere near enough time to get there on time. And so Julie and I are there, and it gets to the point where it's time to start. It's time to start. So we start doing walk around, the two of us, by ourselves, and they keep kind of going. And I don't even how long would you say, Julie, how long do you think we did before they finally
It
showed
was
up?
at least maybe 15 or 20 minutes. It
Yeah,
felt like forever.
and it was
Um,
just the two of us.
yeah, just try and then being like, well, can we make the audience member people be
Yeah,
careful?
we're trying to figure out what we're going to do when they don't show up.
Oh gosh.
Maybe they're lost. Maybe they took a wrong turn on that bumpy dirt road because there were a couple places where it was a little tricky. And I was
Yeah.
hoping that my GPS was telling me the right way to go. So we're not sure that they're even on the right road.
But when Chick-fil-A called, the guy, his name was John, and he told me it was at a ranch up in the mountains. Well, several years ago, we booked a job at a ranch in the mountains, and on paper or MapQuest, however you want to say it, it was like an hour and a half drive, mileage wise. However, you drive for an hour and 20 minutes and then get onto this dirt road, winding dirt road up the mountain to the ranch, and that was another 40 minutes. As I say, I told John that story, and he said, no, I'm pretty sure this is about 5 minutes up that road. So there you go. And so I get there first because I was the first one that got there, and I go up this road. And by the time I got to the top of that road, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So when John saw me and he walks over to me, it's almost to me like he remembered our conversation. And he walks over to me. As soon as he sees me, he goes, "Oh, boy, that's some drive up that road, isn't it?" I was like, why?
Yeah.
I am going to kill you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, dude. Oh gosh. But Julie, I have to tell you something in case I haven't. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I so enjoyed when we went to Texas and did those mysteries. Even though they were tough situations both times, sound systems can just make or break you. Anyway, so we're down at that second gig in Texas, and the Walker Williams band was there, but we were supposed to be able to tie into their sound system. I don't know if you were over at the hotel at the time, but I think I called you and I said, I don't know how we're going to be able to tie into their system and how we're going to be able to play the background tracks for you to be able to sing, Julie. And you said,
Mm.
well, I brought what was it you brought?
An old timer CD player that can hook up several different ways to whatever sound system and all my chords.
Yeah. And that old time little CD player that like saved us. And I was
Yeah,
like,
it was
phew.
a Sony Walkman, an old Sony Walkman.
Oh my gosh, that thing, I mean, it literally saved us because that sound guy, he kept trying, he was working on it and trying to, and here you come in with your old Sony Walkman. We plug it in and it
Yeah.
works.
But one of the funnest things about that second gig was the dancing afterwards. When the band was playing, we got out there in our costumes and everything and just had a blast dancing with the audience.
But yeah, that was fun. That's Walker Williams, boy. He puts on a show. And actually, his band told me he's got all these fans, mostly women, who follow him from place to place, and they're called Walker Stalkers. Walker's one of those guys that had a heavy duty theater background, and that's how I met him because we were doing Gold Dust Tales or something, and he was part. That was a big cast, and too bad that show didn't go anywhere, but it was a very good show. That was long, long ago. I was before I met you, Nick.
And you know how old I am.
You're old.
I know that's tells you how old that show is.
Exactly. Well, we've asked almost everybody this question, Julie. So, do you have a favorite mystery show that you do and or a favorite character?
I do. I like Speakeasy. And I love playing Trixie. I get to talk with an accent that's really fun and a high voice that doesn't hurt me, and I can do it forever. I just love that character. And then that show itself has so many audience member participants that participate in meaningful ways. The costumes, the audience always comes dressed up as the 1920s. And then the things you get to do with your hair and the big eye makeup and the baby doll lips. She's just a fun character to put together.
Oh yeah, you do good. You do well on those baby doll lips. That's kind of amazing.
That's right. You know, I've said for years when people ask me about Julie, if you work with Julie, I say, well, she's a talented performer, but her baby doll lips. Well, I tell you.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, we've talked a lot about the kid shows in another episode, but you have been a huge part of the children's program over at Adams, Julie. Between you and Rob Scott and Alex Crawford and myself and a bunch of younger people that have come in and out, we've just had in my opinion, a ball. They're high energy. Do you have any comments or thoughts about the kids shows that you've done?
The thing that gets me about those is how much the kids want to believe whatever your reality is. Like they just got off a school bus, they walked in the door, and I'm standing there as the queen, and they ask me, "Is this a real castle?" They totally believe they're wherever you say they are. And they really are fun. I think one of the coolest things is just how into it they get. They really try to solve all the clues that we pass out, and then they love their opportunity to get up on stage and do different things. And most of the time, they solve it. They like to be right.
Mm-hmm. They do
Uh,
like to be right. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then I think
Mm-hmm.
the kids scripts are really fun. When something gets stolen and they have to try to figure out what and who did it and why they did it, and And it can be a ridiculous thing like a golden mustache, and they still totally believe it.
Oh, I know. Exactly. Exactly. And last summer, my new daughter-in-law's sister several of the sisters brought their kids.
Sorry.
It was,
How are
yeah.
these people related to you, Marn?
Anyway, the little, gosh, what age is she? 2 or 3 years old, one of the little gals. And in Mystery in the Campground, we'd come up with the Camp Wallaloo. And remember, Julie, we'd have movements with it. Walla, 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 loo. And we have all these movements. Well, I guess for months, that little gal at home would be doing with her little arms, walla, walla, loo. So it leaves an impression on them. That's for sure. Anyway, folks, I unfortunately have to leave in about, well, I guess I've got 15 minutes. I have, how long is the mystery, Nick? I haven't even looked
Oh,
at
it's
it.
probably a good 18 minutes. But it's time to move on to another part of the podcast that we enjoy, which, of course, is the mini mystery. We'll start with the solution to last episode's mystery, accidental death. Why was the professor so sure that it was murder and not a car accident? Had the man's injuries been caused only by being thrown through the windshield, there would have been no blood on the front seat of the car. Therefore, the professor knew that the blood on the seat had been caused by injuries to the man with probable murderous intent before he was thrown through the windshield. His assailant had killed him, started the car, and had then hopped off the running board, hoping the wreckage would cover up the murder. And now, let's move on to this episode's mini mystery. The professor is disappointed. Marn will be the narrator, Julie will be playing Vi, and I will be Professor Fordney. So here we go with The Professor is Disappointed.
What'll I do, Professor?
Implored Vi Cargo as Fordney examined the ground beneath her bedroom window.
7 a.m. A fine time to start looking for a thief. Why couldn't women be more careful with their jewelry?
I was restless all night,
said Vi as Fordney knelt beside a deep impression of a man's right shoe.
By Jove, I thought we'd found one of your stones,
he said, pointing to a leaf in the footprint.
Look at the sunlight glistening on those raindrops.
It was the shower that awakened me. Around 6. It only lasted about 15 minutes. I dozed off again and awakened with a start, just as a man jumped to the ground from my bedroom window.
Was that just before you came to me?
Yes.
Are you alone, Vi?
Yes, the servants are in the country.
Then why did you have all your jewels in the house?
Well, I'd worn them to Mrs. DeForest's party.
Do you know anyone who smokes this brand?
Asked Fordney, picking up from the ground an unsmoked cigarette of English manufacture.
Yes, Mr. Nelson, who brought me home last night. However, I threw that one there.
The thief chiseled open this window directly under your bedroom. I wonder how he got in. Doors were all locked. Oh, come, my dear. Don't you think you've treated the old professor rather shabbily? I know your jewels are heavily insured, and I also know of your bridge debts. Who helped you fake this robbery? Nelson? So where is the clue in that particular mystery? And now, of course, it is time to bid you all adieu. As we finish off another episode, I'd like, of course, to thank everyone for joining us today.
Good to be with both of you. And by the way, I've got my dictionary, Nick, and I'll be correcting myself later.
All right, as long as you're not correcting me for a change.
I just want to say a big thank you to Juli Redson-Smith for being our guest today.
And don't forget to join us for our next episode of the Adams Mystery Playhouse Podcast.